Today, I'm talking to our friends from Ernst & Young, and we're going to talk about the two sides of procurement. So strategic procurement, well, that's where we focus on where you do the grunt work. That's all of the magic behind the scenes, driving the purchasing strategy around the business. Operational procurement is where the users seemingly do everything they can to go around the rules. That's a joke. Well, at least I think it is. But in all seriousness, connecting the dots between these two processes isn't always as straightforward as it seems. The two worlds do connect, of course, whether that's through contract management and ensuring that, through operational procurement in the P2P process, you take advantage of the contracts that you've negotiated and buy compliantly, etc., or 3 bids and a buy. And there are other examples that we can talk about, but it's not always as easy as it seems. Often you have to call up the strategic procurement area and ask them for some assistance on certain things. Maybe you need to buy something that you can't find, and other examples as well. And that's where EY come in. Between their expert advisory service, as well as their amazing work in procurement in general, they also do some fantastic innovations. Let's talk to Hamish at EY and Kristin as well, who's a senior consultant manager on the Ariba side, to discuss how they connect the two worlds together with their guided sourcing RPA. Let's start off by talking about what I was just talking about in terms of the two worlds. What are you seeing in clients, and why has it been a challenge?
Oh, look, I think, and look, it's no news that we're big on RPA because we're one of the largest users of bots as well in our organization.
Yeah.
But I think typically what we're seeing in clients is processes that, have those manual steps, not a surprise, but process that maybe have part manual step. How can we start to automate those? And that's across any part of the source to settle process in its whole. What I think is really interesting right now is, trying to innovate where you're actually joining up maybe 2 mega processes. Right. And that's where something like guided sourcing comes in for us. Again, Kristin will talk us through the detail, but it's not something that's new on us. We've been doing this for a little while. Yeah. And our ability, frankly, Mo, to get this up and running was quite unique. We worked with a client on this one. Their business problem was very much around how do I save time? How do I package something up? Get people in the strategic procurement sense focused on actually more value add tasks than tasks in a sourcing event. So so really powerful for us, and it's gonna save time for clients that adopt this.
Yeah, and Kristin, can you give us an idea around the concept and how you guys embarked on it?
So the concept started with a client who had a lot of disjointed processes, a lot of manual effort, redundancy, entering the same information multiple times, and they really wanted to find a way to streamline that process. So what they did was they took the functionality of the guided buying forms and the Ariba sourcing project, and they combined them. So guided buying was that single intake for all the information they needed populated around that sourcing project itself. Right. It then brought that information over from guided buying to Ariba sourcing with all of the relevant information, also adding the relevant team members for review.
Okay, so it actually takes the information through guided buying and then literally translates that straight through into the sourcing process.
Exactly. So information is entered once within guided buying. So the relevant team members basically review everything that was entered within that guided buying intake form to make sure it's correct. Yep. And if they're okay with it, they approve that task within the Ariba sourcing project.
Okay, that's really cool. You guys have got a video around it. So why don't we run the video and then I think we can get into a bit more detail.
Your business is evolving rapidly. Everything moving at a fast pace. Everyone seems to need something now. Services, parts, components, contracts, procurement. It's all needed. It's all important. It's all a bit overwhelming. You've invested heavily in a solution which streamlines transparency, flexibility, and efficiency to your process. Now with intelligent automation, procurement is transformed. Beyond the usual bottlenecks, beyond the typical hurdles, beyond redundant, disjointed processes and data entry, EY can help you run your business better, faster, and more efficiently. Let EY Guided Sourcing Solutions powered by SAP Ariba take you to the next level.
The Guided Sourcing solution automates the sourcing request process to improve user experience, reduce cycle time and manual error, while increasing capacity for buyers to focus on more strategic work. It's an integrated solution combining the user experience of guided buying and automation through RPA to increase operational efficiency.
A guided buying sourcing intake form will automatically create a sourcing project, set up the relevant team you need to review, secure due diligence inputs, generate one condensed, comprehensive deal packet that outlines everything your management needs, cascade deal packet for final approval. The future of sourcing is now. EY Guided Sourcing with SAP Ariba. Positively impact your bottom line every time intelligently.
That gave us a really good idea because you could actually see the screens. But Kristin, can you just talk us through what it's like today? So if you were using guided buying and sourcing today versus what it looks like with the RPA, because I think that will really help the audience understand the real value and how you take out some of the more disparate pieces, let's say.
Yeah. So a lot of clients currently use a manual process as that initial sourcing intake form. So with guided buying, that manual process is now automated through an electronic form. Yeah. There's always a plethora of due diligence forms as well. Yeah. In addition to that one single form. So this guided buying form really brings all of these redundant forms together into one condensed form. And it also helps classify all of the correct data. So you can, export this raw data and have it all within one spot. So currently everything is completely manual. Yeah. But the future state process will be really that single form, that single engagement for users to enter that intake form. Yeah. And it'll be an end-to-end automation process to reduce any manual effort overall to increase the overall quality, run things faster. I think, the level of man effort overall will be decreased by, doing this once. So overall, that's going to go towards the savings.
Yeah, so typically today you end up either entering out a form in Word or whatever, printing it out and then taking it, right? Or you might email that form. So there's no tracking. Somebody's got to take that form. They've got to re-enter that data back into sourcing, create that process, and then file it away, etc. Then they've got to run the event, right? So they've got to actually get the info from the user. Once they've got it, enter it into the system, then create the event, then run the event, and so on and so forth. Whereas what we're talking about now is using guided buying to capture that information directly from the user, and the system takes that data, puts it through into the sourcing process, and automates over 50% of that work, right? If not more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I think there's something really interesting about that as well. It's about the user experience, right, Kristin?
Right.
So user experience is, one, not impacted, and two, actually, you're going to get a better outcome in terms of actually not manually intervening until it comes back out the other end.
Right.
And you'll have all of that data saved within guided buying as well. So if you lose one of these manual Word documents, then that's okay, because all this information will be within guided buying and you can export it if needed.
Right. So the other thing that I was going to, you were talking about the form. Is that a generic form that captures all of the information, or can you do multiple forms for it? How does that whole piece work?
So the way this solution's built, it is one standalone form.
Yeah.
And there's multiple ways you can configure it based on your needs. You can have it automatically create a requisition after the fact, after the sourcing request is complete through a requisition line form, or you can use the standard Studio extension form, which will go through an approval process, first create a requisition.
Okay.
So you do have options on which form you can use. But ultimately, it would be one consolidated form with all the information that would feed into the sourcing project.
Okay, cool. All right, great. And just in terms of you talk about deal packets, right? So can you just explain a little bit, for anybody who doesn't understand the deal packet piece?
Sure. So there are multiple documents within the sourcing project. The bid waiver and OFAC check. Something I want to mention about the OFAC check is the bot actually automatically goes out to the website and checks the supplier information and pulls it back into the sourcing event. So that's a big differentiator because it's completely automated checking the OFAC.
Okay.
So there's multiple documents, and it varies based on client, but all of those documents will then be consolidated into a final deal packet, into a PDF form, which will be sent to the final approver automatically. So you're not sending 4 documents, for example, attached to that sourcing project to that person. All 4 documents will be consolidated into a PDF for them to review at once.
Yeah, it's this kind of detail that I love, right? Because I think it's like when you look at it on the one side and you say, oh, well, you can fill out a form, you take out, like you were saying, Hamish, right? With the user experience being so much simpler because you're not having to, look at 2 different systems and make the connection between people, right? It's the other stuff that's really interesting, is that it's taking that information, and when it's creating that sourcing project, it's also doing like you were just saying, Kristin, going away and finding the information about the supplier from the website, pulling that back in. That's golden. That's the kind of stuff. It's crazy.
I think if it exists, I think we're looking at other aspects of this, not just the OFAC. There's all sorts of things that could be applied here, right, in terms of checks and balances. So I think this is really interesting, and it's something we've got, an innovation factory around that, which is a big focus for us. Yeah,
that's great. That's really great. But this isn't all you do, right? Hamish, maybe we talk a little bit about, we've talked about guided sourcing, and this is clearly, for me, this, if you're in strategic procurement today, this would take away a lot of the work that you have to do, right? If you're a user who's using guided buying and you're having to go around those processes because you can't find something, and it's taking away that pain. But you've got other solutions as well, right? This is fantastic. Guided sourcing, I think you can see the value in it, but you're doing some other pieces as well, right?
Oh, there's heaps, right? I think what's really interesting. So look, we're not only are we a good consulting organization, we do a lot of procurement, we do a lot of global SAP Ariba implementations. Now, what's interesting about that is we get lots of asks. So those asks manifest themselves into things that Kristin and I know we can automate through RPA. And I think one of those that we want to show you in the future is around geolocator.
Right.
So if you take it from a utilities perspective, right? You're out in the field. You're part of the field force, and you're really keen to understand who's local that I can go to get a spare part, MRO, whatever it might be. The geolocator will help drive preferred suppliers. It will also help drive the local requirements needed.
Right.
And one of the other things, and Kristin and I have been talking about this, is how do we fold in the community aspect of that? Because that's now starting to think about, not just branding, but resilience to our supply chain. So yeah, more to come on that, and definitely happy to share that with you.
Yes, we'll follow this one up. So look, thank you for giving us the overview of guided sourcing. I love this concept. I mean, whenever we've done source to pay transformations, right, and I've been doing this for far too long, it's always been that connectivity between the 2 worlds that's been, I think, not as glued together as it should be. And this is a fantastic approach on it. So thanks, Hamish. Thanks, Kristin, for joining today. And let's catch up again soon.